Hello, School Transportation Nation. I'm Tony Corbin, publisher and president of School Transportation News, and you've made it to the podcast. Welcome. Hey, and guess what? It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. And I have my excellent co-host, Miss Taylor Hannon, associate editor. Welcome.
Hello, it's great to be back. Ryan's off sending the September issue to print, so good stuff coming.
Excellent. Yeah, we had a big magazine this month, so we put in extra hours. Taylor, Ryan, editorial staff, design team, they've been slaving away to get you guys excellent editorial. And September is going to actually be our technology issue. So we're talking all about tech. We've got our technology kind of super users. We've gotten lots of nominations. The creme de la creme have been selected. I know we'll have a list online of nominations coming soon in September. So we're excited about that. Taylor, I think you're putting that together, right? There was lots of good nominations. Come on.
Sounds like there'll be a list online. But no, yeah, lots of great people to choose from. I mean, it's crazy how much technology has impacted these operations and how it's made it so much more efficient, right? Just in routing, student tracking, that type of technology. It's coming. It's coming to school transportation.
Yeah, and I think in the world of COVID, Taylor, especially as school startup comes back, we were thinking, okay, hey, COVID's in the back rearview mirror, but no, here it is, Delta. It's in our face. We cannot get rid of this thing. Can we catch a break? I mean, please, I really could use a little bit of time off. I think people are just sick of hearing the word COVID. I almost don't want to use it anymore. You just say pandemic, right? Because it feels like it's never ending. But realistically, tech is really kind of the saving grace of school transportation. Parent communication apps that give you that student tracking, the contact tracing. I know with Delta kind of reemerging and being very top of mind, health and wellness. Again, a huge thing at school districts. What's it going to look like? I know the debate about masks. We've got vaccinations. Do you get a third one? You've got the conversation of cleaning. How do you manage that? So there's just so many aspects of technology, but we definitely see renewed interest in how to effectively clean, sanitize, air purification, sanitization, ionization. There's a lot of new technologies that are being researched right now. And I know there's some studies specifically about air quality in school buses and the technology because it's still very emerging. So, buyer beware, gotta see if the technologies are meeting the expectations. So there are some different groups out there doing studies. So a lot of interesting, nuanced things happening in the school bus industry right now, specifically as we kind of get into school startup. I know, Taylor, you were talking with a few districts about their startup and how that was going. You want to share a little bit?
Yeah, kind of an interesting topic. So I was talking with Drew Damian. He's at Palmer Public Schools in Massachusetts. And I kind of call people up, how's school startup going? What are you looking at? And so his district is requiring masks on board the school bus since there's still that CDC, mandate that requires masks on board public transportation. And so his district now is debating whether or not they're going to require masks in school buildings. So he hasn't started school yet, but he's already anticipating this kind of push and pull with his parents, like, okay, why is my student wearing a mask next to Johnny on the school bus? But when my student goes inside the school, they can sit next to Johnny and take their mask off and it's totally fine, right?
That's so weird, right? I mean, that is so strange. Why there wouldn't be kind of an alignment there between in the school bus and in the building? It's kind of an enclosed structure. So who knows what is happening right there with that thought process? That's kind of crazy to me.
I wouldn't want to have to explain that to parents. Like, well, the reasoning is, right?
Well, there's already enough stress on drivers, on transportation departments. There's all this driver shortage going on. When someone says they have a driver shortage, I'm not shocked anymore. I'm kind of like, I'm more shocked if they say they have enough drivers. Oh my God, you have enough drivers? I can't believe it. That's amazing, right? Like, it's such an anomaly these days to actually have enough drivers. I know some districts are lucky. They may not have a shortage or maybe they're smaller, but I know our larger urban districts, they definitely are struggling out there. I was talking last week to a contractor friend of mine out in the Chicagoland area, and he's like, man, I'm 45 drivers short and it is crazy. Schools are sending me janitors to drive. Like my wife, she's a nurse. She's quit her job to come work at our company. We need all hands on deck to try to fulfill the obligation that we have. And you know what? That leaves a lot of pissed off parents, and they are not happy. They're going to take it out on the school, transportation department, the drivers, because they're running late. It just, to me, those are just really tough things to try to manage because parents' expectations, they're so high. And how do you manage that? I mean, the school has to be emailing and communicating with the parents on a really regular basis. I know there's been a big national push to try to elevate awareness of the national school bus driver shortage, but parents are so tuned out maybe to that. Like they don't see that at a national level. They're just looking at the local impact to them because you don't really see outside of the halo of your world when you've got kids. You're just trying to get them to school and get to work. And how does that function? But when it starts to impact you and you feel it, you become a little more disgruntled. So I definitely hearing stories out there more and more about that.
And Tony, I'll be talking to Katrina Morris. She's the transportation director for West Shore Educational Service District in Michigan a little later, but she's actually not in a driver shortage. And she'll tell you a little bit more about that, but she's attributing it to the driver culture, picking those drivers up, making them feel like they're valued, that their job is super respected in the transportation department. It's definitely not like that everywhere, right? Like I just wrote a story about Lee County schools in Florida, and they had 20 drivers quit within a week of reopening school.
Why did they quit? What was the reasoning?
So, on top of that COVID-19 frustration, right, they're taking the brunt of the parents. They're showing up late to those stops because of that driver shortage. The parents are letting them have it, I guess, for being late. And they just said, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah, I think the parents don't realize the repercussions of that behavior, and that's really going to have kind of an exacerbated effect on a shortage that already is really hurting our industry heavily. And I'm not sure really what the end game solution is. Culture may be one of those things. I call it stealing from Peter to pay Paul. It's like you're poaching drivers from the neighboring district. So maybe you've solved your problem, but now they're in the house of pain. So what do you do, right? And I know I saw a good friend of ours, Fili Bonilla, down at Hayes ISD near Austin. And, he posted a video of all his buses flashing the yard. There was as far as the eye could see, they had buses with those lights flashing early morning. And, he was just praying. He was like, please let us have a good start to school. So I got to catch up with him and find out where they landed with that. But I gave him some props out there on Facebook and said, hey, I know you guys got this. His assistant director, Anthony Shields, was on the podcast not too long ago. And those guys, they've got it dialed in. But, I think no matter how much tech and preparation and planning, there are some things that are simply out of your control as transportation professionals, and you do your best to try to manage through it. And we're always asked to do more with less resources. And now it's human capital. Right? It's really coming down to how much human capital do we have and can we manage it? I mean, as a marketer, because STN is a marketing company, right? And I look at this almost like, hey, how can we market to drivers better? What can we do? Can we do a better job? I know people say social media and our pages, and yeah, we keep up to date on our Facebook, but sometimes transportation just doesn't have control over the whole marketing ecosystem within a school, and they're hamstrung a bit too. They can only say certain things. They can only advertise certain ways. So sometimes for me to say, hey, I would do it this way, you might not be able to do that way simply because the school district's not going to let you. So this is a really tough position to be in, but we'd love to hear your feedback. If you guys ever want to drop me an email, you want to talk about, maybe how we could tap into some of the driver shortage challenges, you feel free to email me. It's Tony, Tony at stnmedia.com. Happy to take emails, talk about stuff on the podcast anytime with you guys, but really interesting topics we're unpacking here on the podcast today. But Taylor, want to kind of get into a few other kind of big hot button items that we've been talking about. Ryan and I touched on it last week, which was masks. And that craziness, you just kind of touched on it there a second. And you got any other things going on with the whole mask thing? There seems a bit of a tug of war going on out there on that.
It is. It on it like to mask, to not mask. Who has the power to decide who does mask, right? I mean, that's the real question right there. Governors out there are signing executive orders to kind of say parents are choosing whether or not their child should mask at school or on the school bus, whereas school districts are fighting back. They're saying, no, you're going to mask in our school on school buses. It's a safety concern. So there's a lot of this back and forth. There's a lot of this feud going on. I think President Biden just kind of stepped up last week and kind of said that he's directing the Department of Education to use its legal authority against governors who are kind of attempting to block or, prevent school districts from not requiring a mask mandate. So I'm not really sure what that's going to look like or how that's going to evolve going forward, but that's another player in the game now on this mask conversation.
It's a power play. Who has authority? That's a great way of saying it, right? And I guess my opinion is the local school district should make the decision, right? What's best for their students. But there's all these higher powers that say, but it does come back to a safety thing, a health and wellness thing. Again, at the top of the podcast, I mentioned it, health, wellness, cleaning, disinfecting, air quality in the school buses. It's just the reality of the world we live in these days. And I don't think you can really go forward and be remiss about not potentially addressing it. And there's new technology available. You might be learning about it. You can read about it in STN, go on our website, do your homework. We'd love to be a resource for you to kind of tap into some of that information. So I know vaccinations is another big push, Taylor. We're seeing more and more of that, at least on the adult side. But for me, I have young kids, 3 and 7. They can't get vaccinated. And I'm hearing my brother-in-law, he's in Las Vegas. His kids go to a private school, Catholic school. They know they have a friend out there that said, hey, there was an outbreak. Maybe they didn't get it at the school, but a bunch of kids got COVID. They had to shut the school down within a week of opening. Are we going to see widespread outbreak in children because Delta seems to be a lot more infectious? That is very scary to me as a parent. Freaks me out. Makes me think, no, my kids, they're definitely wearing a mask.
Right. And I think that's like the big conversation is this school year is looking a lot similar to last year, to what we've seen in the past. And we're trying to get away from that, right? We just wrote an article on a Georgia school district who closed down their school transportation because they had 64 confirmed positive cases in their school. And then with quarantining and everything, that's 711 students who aren't allowed to be in school because they've been exposed to COVID-19. So think about that on scale. That's crazy that these 700 kids now have to be at home virtually learning because of this.
Yeah, I know there was a story we had read a few weeks back about a parent who sent their kid to school in Washoe County knowing that the kid was COVID positive, but still sent them to school and exposed other kids. If that's not a reason to wear a mask, then I don't know what is. If parents would do such a thing, it feels just very socially irresponsible, criminal. I think I read that they're not going to pursue criminal charges against that parent, but man, feels just so negligent and so just, disrespectful to the other parents, kids, teachers. It's just egregious in my mind.
Well, hold on. Before we jump to conclusions, we don't know this parents' background. Do they have childcare for their student? At some point, maybe sending their child to school is the safest solution that they can have for themselves, right? A lot of these parents are working too, so maybe they can't keep their kid home and lose that money, and it's better for them to send them to school.
Yeah, I don't know, Taylor. I'm leaning towards I don't want my kids infected. I'm sure they may feel that way, but other parents that affect their life and their life. What's the halo effect on that, right? It's just right. It's crazy. I get it. You're playing devil's advocate.
I got to, yeah.
I know that's fair. That's fair, but reasonably, I don't know. We want to hear what you think too, guys. Email us, reach out. We want to get your feedback on some of these blazing hot news stories that are out there on school startup and kids going back and COVID and all that. So please let us know what you think, and we would love to talk about it here on the podcast.
So, Tony, I'm surprised you haven't brought this up yet, but what is happening in October that everyone needs to know about?
I think it is STN Expo Indianapolis. I know everybody needs professional development training October 1st through the 5th. You're desperate. You haven't seen a live person maybe at a conference in 18, 19 months, maybe longer. We got you covered. If you guys are interested, we got a $100 discount code for you with code podcast. You can save. We would love to have you register. I know there's not a lot of time left. I think our cutoff is September 10th to register. The show is again in early October. We've got a star-studded lineup of speakers, education. We've got our Transportation Director Summit. If you're a director, we still have some spots available if you'd like to jump in. We are doing a special scholarship as well. STN is turning 30. Can you believe it? 30 years we have been working. My parents started this in 1991, September of 91. So in honor of that, we are offering 30 scholarships to STN Expo Indianapolis. So if you are kind of hurting, you don't got the budget, STN's got you covered. We want to give back to our community that's been so good to us over the last 30 years. You can go online to stnexpo.com, click on the Indianapolis website, and then it'll take you to the website and you will be directed to where you can go and apply for that scholarship. But if you're listening to this podcast, the cutoff is September 1st. So you guys have about a week to get in there and apply for the scholarship. There's a limited amount, so don't wait.
And good news for everyone considering going to Indy. It looks like there's going to be booster shots rolling around. So by the time Indianapolis comes, people should be available for that third shot if they happen to get their vaccine right away in December when it first became available. So that's just another level of protection that's going to be available for people out there as we head into these conferences.
Yeah, and just like school buses, we're going to wear masks, right? So I think, again, when things come around, the realistic element is we're going to see health, safety, and wellness is going to be a top priority for us at STN to make sure everybody has a successful and healthy conference. So we are excited to see you guys. And then also don't forget, we have the TSD conference. So if you operate special needs transportation, that is the conference for you. That is November 17th through the 22nd. So we've got the early bird special to save $100 available to you if you go on tsdconference.com. You can check that out, book it. And then we also have STN Expo in Reno. If you want to come in December, kind of beautiful Reno. It'll be a little brisk there, not a summer breeze like we normally do. But that one's going to be December 4th through the 9th. So thank you, Taylor, for letting me shamelessly plug our conferences here on the podcast. Alrighty then. So, TransFinder, our podcast sponsor, you may realize they have a browser-based routing solution called Route Finder Plus, and it's got everything you need. Full calendar-based routing, artificial intelligence optimization, option for right-side pickup and approach, powerful report writer, and unlimited user-defined fields. They also recently added some amazing new features to pump it up, like live traffic option, form finder to make your paper forms electronic, email mail merge for student schedules, and exceptions on student schedules. Plus, it's super fast. You guys need this for school startup. Make sure and contact TransFinder at getplus@transfinder.com and mention the STN podcast to get a Grubhub gift card. All right, Taylor's going to be talking with Katrina Morse at West Shore ESD next. Taylor, take it away.
All right. Hey, everyone. I am joined on the School Transportation Nation stage with Katrina Morris. Hey, Katrina.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Katrina is the Transportation Director for West Shore Educational Service District in Michigan. She's also the immediate past president of the Michigan Association of Pupil Transportation. That's a lot.
It's a mouthful.
And this is actually your second appearance on the podcast, right? It's been like 50 episodes.
It has, and I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, we're excited to have you back. So give us a little bit of flavor. What's going on over there at West Shore ESD? I know you guys go back to school next month. So what does that kind of look like?
So we are getting our bus routes all ready. We're getting ready for the drivers to all come back so we can do all their training and everything with them to make sure that they're going to be at their best that they can be for our kids. With the mask mandate right now for the school buses, our drivers and our kids who can medically tolerate the masks will be once again required while they're on the buses to have the masks on. So we're just getting ready. Everything is going to change and it's okay.
So then you guys are sticking with the masks. That's kind of what we've been seeing back and forth on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on that. And, it really goes back to the CDC said, is requiring school buses. They are part of that requirement. And when we look at our student population, we have special needs and we want what's best for them. If we're here to protect our kids, we really need to protect them. And a lot of them can't have the vaccine yet. So we're going to, err on the side of caution and follow the CDC requirements.
I got a question for you. I'm going to just kind of throw it out there. We got an email today and a driver is asking, I wear glasses and I'm driving. Do I still have to wear a mask? What has that happened at your school district?
Absolutely. I have drivers that all last year, they have glasses on and they are driving. They have figured out ways to make it so that their glasses don't fog up. Is it ideal? Obviously, no. We would all love to go back to normal, but at the same point, like I said, we have to do what's best for our kids. And right now, what's best for our kids is to help keep them safe. So we're going to do this. And I have to give credit to the drivers last year. They really did not complain about it. It was something that everybody knew this is what we have to do in order to keep our kids in school. So we're just going to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so I know with back to school time, your department also released a new safety video and it's up on our website, but it kind of highlights some new technology features going on. I think you guys called it red lights flashing, no passing. You want to give us some insight into that?
So when we worked with legislators over the last 3 years to pass some school bus safety and security bills, one of the big things that we realized was nobody knows what they're supposed to do around our lights. We had one legislator say, you mean I have to stop the whole entire time that the lights are on? And, you kind of think about it and you're like, well, yeah. And he said, yeah, but at a stop sign, I go up there, I stop, and then I look both ways. And when there's nothing, I can go. He said, I can't do that. You have a stop sign coming out. So we understood, hey, we really have to educate the public a little bit better. And enforcement isn't going to help alone. We have to make sure that we educate everybody. So we did a big, huge PSA and we put it out to the whole entire state, as like you said, out to everybody. And it was free of charge. We said, please send this to your media outlets. Please put this on your social media. Please put this on, your school websites. Pass this to anybody that you think we can help to be able to get our message across. And I was very fortunate to be so supported from our superintendent here. He put it out to his associations as well, to Michigan Department of Ed. So, we're really hoping to just get that message out to really make sure that we can protect our kids.
Hey, well, we're going to help you get that message out. Let's go ahead and play that right now.
Red lights flashing, no passing. The bus is the safest form of transportation to and from school, but we need your help to protect our kids getting on and off the school bus. New laws allow the usage of stop arm cameras to enforce citations and fines up to $500 for vehicles who do not stop for buses, whether you're behind the bus or coming from the opposite direction. Our kids' safety is too important, so pay attention and remember, red lights flashing, no passing, and help keep our kids safe.
And so speaking of, getting involved with legislation, what is that process like? Why is that important?
I would strongly advise anybody, when you have this passion, and when we do transportation, student transportation, we all have this passion to help make our drivers successful, help to create like that atmosphere where it's fun to work in, but still we want to provide that safety and protection for our kids. Make sure you show that passion to your legislators. Our legislators, a lot of people, have to remember that they have kids that either rode the bus or their neighbors' kids rode the bus. They know somebody who rides the bus. And people just don't think about stuff with us. It's like that back end of the school that, everybody forgets about that bus. remind them about that. The way that I met our legislator was I had a bus out at an event one night, and he was walking by, and I yelled at him out the door, and I said, hey, when you get elected, don't forget about me. I know I'm 40 foot long, black and yellow, pretty hard to miss, but people forget about us all the time, and I would say don't give up. There were a lot of times over those 3 years that we were fighting for these bills, but just voice your opinion and really, show them your passion and stay engaged.
Let's jump into those bills a little bit that you were, fighting for. They were introduced in February, and there's 4, but they kind of all jump off of each other. But one of them was the school bus stop arm cameras, which is kind of what the PSA is all about.
Yeah. So the big thing here in Michigan was that counties did it differently. Some counties would use stop arm camera information already to issue citations, and other counties would not. And in the state of Michigan, a civil infraction means a law enforcement has to be able to see it happen. With a video, they didn't see it happen, and so they didn't issue citations. So this really kind of closed that loophole and allowed us to be able to give them the information so that they could issue a citation if they, felt that that was what they needed to do. In also looking at this, the Prosecuting Attorneys Association worked closely with us on this, and they realized that we needed to add another piece, which was the impeding or obstructing our buses. You have parents who get upset and they go in front of the bus and stop in the middle of the road, and they're saying you can't do that anymore. And if you do that, you will be charged with a civil infraction and have to pay up to $500.
Wow. That's great. And then I know another one here is that there's no unauthorized people allowed on the school bus, so the school bus driver has to grant you permission to come on board.
Yes, and that is something that we worked really closely with Representative O'Malley on. In his words, we have to start respecting our bus drivers, right? We trust them with our most precious cargo, and we should be able to trust them with saying, yes, you can get on the bus, or no, you cannot. And with the way that things are in our world today, tempers can flare very quickly, and we just don't need that person getting on the bus, whether it's to yell at a child or to yell at the bus driver. We have a huge, huge obligation to get those kids ready to learn into school safely. So this is really going to help us with that.
Mm-hmm. So have you guys put stop on cameras on your buses then?
We have not yet. This just got signed into law on July 13th, and it goes into effect on August 11th. So yes, this is something that we are looking into, though.
Very new,
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, kind of like jumping off of that, allowing people to come on the bus and that school bus driver being aware of their surroundings. What Katrina is really famous for is the proactive response training that she kind of worked with for school bus drivers. She worked with colleagues, law enforcement to pioneer training for school bus drivers, transportation directors to kind of prevent and avoid and deal with unexpected violence and threats. And I know if anyone was at STN Virtual, she gave a great presentation with school bus driver Estelle Graves, who actually had a terrifying experience while on the school bus. But what is proactive response training? Why is it so important? Give us the lowdown.
So what it is it's going to remind everybody what you should do if you come across an act of violence. And it can be any number of things. Basically, we always tell everybody, do something. Doing nothing is the worst thing that you can do. It's important, we remind our drivers every year. I think it's important for training because if you're in that situation, you're going to go back to the last training that you had. And we really want those drivers to be fresh. We want our drivers to protect our kids, but we have to give them the tools in order to do that. So proactive response training for school bus drivers was something that we did that definitely gave that extra tool in the toolbox for our drivers to keep our kids safe. We've always told everybody, we drive in places where some people wouldn't drive during the daylight with their windows down and their doors unlocked. And yet, as a school bus driver, we drive in those areas in the dark and open the door multiple times to allow children in. We have to be able to train them in what to do if something should happen. And with these laws, that actually helps with this. No unauthorized person should be on the bus. So.
Mm-hmm. And even, in Estelle's case, I know she kind of talks about it, was a student on the bus. So just being aware of your surroundings, knowing, hey, does that student normally sit in that seat? Why are they sitting here? And just picking up on those clues.
Yeah, our drivers are phenomenal with our kids. They don't drive just because it's an easy job. They've got different times of days and they come all the time. But there's that passion for the kids, and they really do know their kids. She knew something was off that day, but she just didn't know what. Hopefully, if that were to ever happen again, our drivers would have other things that they could do that would help them in that situation.
And there is an article on our website on Estelle's story. It's under special reports. So for anyone interested, definitely go check it out. But speaking of the training, the goal was that by this fall, all transportation directors and school bus drivers would have had that training. Is that still on track?
So all transportation directors in the state of Michigan were actually all trained by last year, September 30th of 2020, and all drivers will be done by September 30th of 2021. So we are right on track with this, and very excited and thankful to the state. Michigan Department of Ed was really supportive in this, and again, legislation really helped move this through to make sure that Michigan was a priority, taking care of our kids.
That's awesome. What if there's a transportation director or someone out there who's not in Michigan but wants to get their hands on this?
All they have to do is email me. I am very willing to give it out. We ask a few questions from them. We want to make sure that they understand what the training is supposed to be and that they have someone facilitate it. We don't want it just given to the drivers. They have to have some background involved just so that way there's that understanding. But since we did present at STN, we've had 35 different states request it. We're more than happy to give it out. That's what it's for. It's to help keep our kids safe, whether they're in my state or they're in another state, because they could be mine tomorrow.
That's awesome. That, just to hear that message is being spread and more people are getting this training, that is so great to hear.
Yeah.
So switching gears, as we look towards this upcoming school year, are you looking at any technology purchases? There's all this funding that's out there. What's on your wish list?
Well, so for the funding is a little different for special ed. We do not qualify for the ESSER funds. So that is a K-12 funding thing that they have. So yes, we still have a wish list though. We still would like, the new technology for the school buses for the cameras. And I have looked at different routing softwares and stuff like that as well that will tie everything in, as well as student tracking, to help with that piece of it. So there are things that we still have on a wish list. We just don't have those ESSER funds like K-12 does.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the American Rescue Plan, I thought it gave money for special education.
So that one we are currently looking into.
Okay.
Our business office is currently looking into those to see what all we would qualify for and what we can use those funds for. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are you guys looking at alternative fuel buses at all?
Not at this time. We have not. We have stayed with the diesel. Mm-hmm. I know when the electric buses came out, and I am very interested in moving that way. We are extremely rural. So I am the size of Delaware, and I travel a lot. Our buses, I only have 11, but they travel about 350,000 miles a year. To get to our first stop is over an hour away sometimes. And so, we're just waiting for that little bit more longevity for those buses to be able to go on the electric and, still be able to have everything run that we need to keep our kids with medical issues safe on the bus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And before I let you go, I'm going to hit you with the driver shortage question. How are you guys doing? You guys staffed for the upcoming school year?
I am staffed, and I'm glad you asked that because I am a firm believer. I know we have a shortage all over. Everybody has a shortage. I have a phenomenal staff. And I make sure that they have the training that they need, and I make sure that they know that they are valued, and I make sure that everybody who will listen to me across our state knows how important these drivers are. And I really think that having an environment where they know that they are respected, where they are listened to, and they are needed, I think goes a long way in helping with that driver shortage. So I know it isn't the answer to everything, but we have really been fortunate to not have to deal with that.
I think kindness goes a long way and showing that you care. And I think that's huge that you guys have that cultural environment of your district.
We do. It is such a great atmosphere to work in. We can laugh. We are a big family. One of the biggest things that was hard for us during, everything, just like with everybody else, was we couldn't be together. It's important for them to know that we're out there fighting for them. And I always tell them, this isn't about me. This is about what you guys do every day. I have the easy job. I sit in a chair and wheel it around my office. They actually are out with our kids, right? Every day. And they're doing the hard stuff. They're dealing with the weather and dealing with the traffic and everything else. And they're trying to keep our kids safe all at the same time. So I just respect them, and I always tell them I can't do what I do out at the state level and trying to push everything for them if they don't do what they're doing here at home. So it's a great team effort, and I'm just so proud of them.
It's refreshing. It's great to hear people not in a shortage, because that's what's been reported all across the media. So congrats to you. You're doing great things. Obviously, you're keeping your drivers happy, so that's amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank Katrina for jumping on the podcast with us, sharing her insight, and giving us a little tidbit into Michigan.
Well, thank you so much for having us again.
Special thanks to Taylor and Katrina Morris for jumping on the podcast. Really enjoyed your guys' conversation this week. All right, guys, special thanks to our friends at TransFinder. We couldn't do this podcast without them. Thanks for being a sponsor of this episode. Don't forget, check out stnonline.com for all your latest news, expert analysis on everything related to the school transportation industry. Don't forget as well, register for those conferences, stnexpo.com and tsdconference.com. Don't forget for Indy, code podcasts to save $100 in Indianapolis. Thanks everybody for listening. Subscribe, stream, review our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stnpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We love you, nation. We'll see you next week.